Hello all, Alison here. Welcome back to Words and Pictures for another Watercolour Wednesday. Something a bit different, as you can see on the desk today. The start of a couple of unboxing videos. I have been invited on many occasions by various companies to investigate, explore, experiment with products of theirs. And I've always had to say no because I'm too busy. But just recently I decided that I was going to say yes to a couple with some space opening up, I thought, in the year. And particularly because a couple of them offered me travel watercolour kits to experiment with, and painting plein air in the open air is something I really wanted to try to get into. So we might be going on some outdoor adventures in the future. So I have some travel watercolour sets to experiment with, and we're going to start with this one here. This is the LIghtwish. I haven't looked inside this box yet. They're slightly different. So this one I know you need to put your own paints into. This one from Fumui comes with paints in, so two different kinds of products. This one is some sort of botanical watercolor colors from Paul Rubens. So lots to explore, but what I'm going to talk about today is choosing a mixing palette to put in here. So we'll look at adding the paints to the palette, and then see how the kit comes together, explore a little bit. And LIghtwish have offered a discount code, which you'll find in the description below, available to people watching this video. It's available from today, May the 20th, through to May 25th. So a little teaser for you there. So let's get on and open this box. I've set the other boxes aside and we're going to have a little explore of what we've got in here. First up, a really nice box. Cardboard I can use for tags. And yeah, there is the travel kit, and what looks like it's probably a brush, which is great. Very noisy plastic. Okay, what do we got? That's a nice firm band. We've got a little loop here, which I guess this can sit into once it's opened out a bit from being in its packaging. That must go. There we go. Lovely, nice tight fit. And ooh, that's a nice brush. Nice fine tip. So plein air painting, very new to me, so working out how you set up a kit, how you can have what you need with you. I'm thinking a water brush might be the thing you want. So this is a bonus brush, because otherwise you're going to need a pot of water and need to find a way to keep that. So we've got pad of paper. Ooh, very nice, sturdy. I believe it's cotton paper. Did I read? Watercolor sketchbook. Let's see, doesn't say, but I know you can also get replacement papers, because there's another code for replacement papers. So if you've already got one of these, you can pick up some more papers. That's adorable, with little trees on there. Trees, yeah, it's all very nature based. That's really cute. And this is a ceramic palette, which is one of the loveliest surfaces to mix on. So I think that's quite unusual for a travel kit to come with a ceramic palette, and that's lovely. So what goes where? Oh look, so presumably I can, there we go, attach that into there, and then that's ready to slide back in, and I can paint here. Yeah, open the page, and there it is, ready to play. So that's really cute. Well, can I hold it? I can hold it in one hand. That's very good. So there are traveling water pots as well, so maybe that's something I'm going to need to get into. So I need to put some paints in here, which is it's always a problematic thing, because you can of course choose just favorite colors to go in here, but if you're out and about and just sort of want to maybe quickly capture something that catches your eye, you don't know what it is that's going to capture your eye. So my feeling is for this, that rather than a palette of favorite colors, what's a good idea is to have a palette of a good mixing palette. So you want some basic blues, reds and yellows, so that you can mix up pretty much anything. And then, of course, I'll have additional greens because I live in the country. I'm drawn to botanicals. The chances are that's what I'm going to be doing. So, yeah, I've put together some paints that I will now put into place here, and then we'll take this for a little spin on the desk, and then maybe one day soon, when I've worked out what I'm doing, we can go for a little trip out into the wilds. If you'd like to come out with me into the wilds, let me know, and that will be a tester video for this little travel set. So, time to put some paint in. I think what I might do is put my mat down, because occasionally this can get messy. Obviously, if you're not somebody who has tube watercolours, this isn't going to work for you. But I do, and I love my tube watercolours. I have filled up pans with them, but sometimes I use them fresh and loose from the tube. And yeah, so I've pulled out, as I said, some reds, yellows and blues that are basic reds, yellows and blues. So I've got a cool and a warm and a cool and a warm and sort of a cool and a warmish blue, and that should give me lots of mixing ability. Into the mix, as I say, I've put in some greens, additional greens, just because I love my additional greens. This would have been sap green, but I've run out. So Serpentine Genuine is making the cut instead of sap green. So let me just take you through what we've got. The reds, Quinacridone Rose and Pyrrol Red. You can see these are from my very first little tiny Daniel Smith tasters, which, I mean, must be getting on for 6, 7, 8 years ago now. Quin Deep Gold, New Gamboge and Naples Yellow, so a warm and a cool. Buff Titanium, Van Dyke Brown. I toyed for a long time between Raw Umber and Van Dyke Brown, and in the end I went for the deeper, cooler one. Burnt Umber and Burnt Sienna Light, which is a huge favourite of mine. I've just bought a new tube because I've run out. Then Moonglow, because I can't be without Moonglow. It's, it's just compulsory. Prussian Blue, which is a sort of warmish ocean blue. Ultramarine, which is a perfect mixing blue. Cerulean Blue Chromium, I thought is good, because if I'm going to get into landscapes, cerulean means sky blue. Deep sap green. This would have been sap green, as I say, but Serpentine Genuine has a lovely kind of granulation to it and some mineral sparkle, touch of mineral sparkle. Green gold, necessity. One of my American Journeys made it in. When I made my original choice, I had lots of American Journeys, and then I realised I needed my mixing colours, because if I do end up in an urban environment, the Czechs like to paint their houses very bright colours, and or if I run into something like the wood violets or the meadow flowers that I do run into, then I need those mixing colours in there. So the Pat's Coastal Blue is the one that stayed in the cut, because it's just an unusual colour, and it will also give me a chance to lighten other colours. I haven't put a white in, because really you want to be using empty space for your white. And then grey titanium, which again I can't be without. So not many people, I think, would have sort of 3 versions of grey in their palette, but I love a grey. So when you're putting in paint into these palettes, I think this is the order I've decided I want to go in. I think I want the greens and blues probably nearer to me, so it's going to go the green lots through here and the red lots through here. It's as simple as open the tube. Well, I say that's simple. Sometimes I need a French wrench to get the tubes open. And then, hopefully, squeeze out some paint into the palette. Now, if your paints are quite old, as mine are, you might find a bit of resistance to start with. You might have to do a bit of digging. But a paint, as we know, is going to set in this pan. So a set watercolour is not necessarily a problem, because you can always reactivate it with water. So let's have a look and see if we can get some Quin Rose out of here. I think it's probably just that top bit that has dried up a bit. But if you find that your paints have dried up completely, you can cut it open and use the solid part from the inside. So come on, Quin. I can feel you moving in there. Let's put one of the others in, and I'll come back and struggle with that in a minute. Pyrrol Red, are you going to cooperate? Yeah, that look, that you can see is ready to go. So I want that in the second hole. So it's just a question of popping some paint into that pan. You can fill the pan completely, but these paints take forever to use up, so you probably don't want to do a completely full pan, because you might in the future want to change the colour palette that you've got here. So that dot of paint will last for ages in there. Quin Deep Gold is going to be the next one, and this should be fine because it's a fairly new paint. I'm going to come back and dig around in my Quin Rose in a minute, because I do want the Quin Rose in here. There we go. That's a beautiful kind of burnished golden yellow. So as you can see, it's just filling this up. So I will continue to do that. I'm going to have a dig around in my Quin Rose, because I might as well now. There's relatively little left in there. I may well cut it open. This is going to be a French wrench. Oh, there we are. So I'll get some more paints into here, and then I'll come back and we'll do a quick bit of swatching and just a little experiment onto here. This really is words and pictures, warts and all today. So I have had to cut open my Quinacridone Rose. There's the paint inside. And yeah, obviously these paints are expensive, so you don't want to waste them. This is fine, because this is how it is when it's dried in a pan and you just use water to reactivate it. What I'm not sure, because I've never tried it to do this, is whether I can wet that sufficiently that this little bit will sit in this palette. I'm going to cut that bit off, because that can go back in its main palette upstairs, where I do need to top it up. And I'm just thinking, if I press that down in there, it's fine. There we go. Lots of Quin Rose. Look at that. That is a pity. But one could even paint from that. It's why dot cards are so great. The tester dot cards that you can get. Even from the tiny smear of paint that you get on those, you can quite often paint a couple of little pictures. So I need to go and put this bit of paint into my main Daniel Smith palette upstairs, and yeah, I'll be back to swatch up this palette here. As you can see, lots of lovely juicy paints going on. And yeah, as I say, if for instance I were going on holiday by the sea, I would probably top up some more of maybe those American Journey colours that you've seen me use, the beautiful coastal beachy colours. But I think as a mixing palette, this is going to be really good. It's going to take me right through from summer with all these greens and sort of floral colours, sky blues, to autumn, because I've got plenty of browns in there. Brown is always needed in nature. And as I say, those greys just give me the option to mute or dull down some of these colours. I can just see a bit of Quin Rose has escaped into my Moonglow. So let's not let that happen. There we go. And I mean, when I'm filling paint palettes, what I quite often do is give it a little bash, and the more liquidy paints will look spread out, like Cerulean Blue Chromium. The others might need a bit of help, and if you want to, you can use just a little spatula to just damp down some of those. I managed to do two at once there, those peaks that are sticking up. I'm not going to close that until they've dried. That's one other thing to consider. I do also have some Sennelier tube paints, and Sennelier watercolours are made with honey, and I find they never quite dry completely hard. They have a sort of slightly sticky, slightly gloopy surface, so they might not be ideal for something like this. The Daniel Smiths, I know full well, dry completely hard. So they'll be perfect for this, just for reactivating with water. Right, time to go and put some Quin Rose away, and I'll be back to swatch. So I'm not going to use one of my precious pieces of sketch paper for this swatch. I'll pop it onto one of my pieces of large watercolour paper, but I've also cut a little one that I can keep as a reminder, which I can just maybe tape inside here somewhere. I mean, I'm pretty familiar with these colours. They've been chosen for a reason. We might as well try out this brush while we're at it. I think it'll probably continue to, shape to quite a nice point once it's wet. Very nice. Let's just get some colours on the mat. So when you're working from fresh paint, obviously it's a different kettle of fish from when you're working from a dry palette. There's no need to spritz it with water to get it going, but you do sometimes need to be just a little bit encouraging, because in its gloopy state, it doesn't always want to come onto the brush. So there's the Pat's Coastal Blue. That's titanium grey, Pat's Coastal Blue. Let's get a little bit of the green gold. As you can see, that's an amazing sort of spring summer green. And as soon as you mix it with sap green, that's one of my favourite ways to create greens. But as I say, no sap green at the moment. So Serpentine Genuine, which it has things in common with sap green. It's a little bit more acid, which is why it was important to me to have the deep sap green also in the mix, because that's going to give me the opportunity to mix up deeper, darker greens. And of course, all my yellows and blues will also mix up greens. But so far, this is a really nice collection of colours, isn't it? It's doing a good job. Here's the Cerulean Blue Chromium. Let's just move you temporarily. As you can see, a beautiful summer sky blue spreads out really nicely. This is the Ultramarine. And you can see sort of as I'm doing this, I'm just putting that paint back down in its place. That's a lot of paint on the brush. But it'll also spread out nicely. A little more water, just to see what we can get in terms of gradient. Nice. I can use a palette knife to scrape that back into there if I wanted. Here is the Prussian blue, which, as I say, has got that ocean blue feel to it. A very warm blue, so in terms of mixing, that's going to make it possible to get to all kinds of places. And then our beloved Moonglow, which has within it different colours, but granulates out so beautifully. There we go. So that's a nice botanical landscape already by itself, I would say. Let's have a look what we've got to go with it. So Burnt Sienna Light, I think, made the cut, didn't it? I mean, seriously, one of my all-time top autumn colours. Amazing, vivid colour. This is Burnt Umber, which is one of those sort of workaday colours, I would say. I hardly ever use it by itself, but as a mixer with other browns, it's just really good at warming things up to a lovely nuttiness. This is the Van Dyke Brown, so this is the very dark, coolest possible dark brown you could get, named obviously for the painter. And it brushes out to the lightest possible kind of almost grey. Another reason I like it. Here's the Buff Titanium, which again is just a really useful mixing colour. It's warmer than titanium grey. It's got a sort of creaminess to it, which is really nice. Here is Naples Yellow. Now, it's not strictly a cool yellow, but it's a yellow I like. Hansa Yellow Light would be a much more standard mixing yellow. But I just love the buttery colour of a Naples Yellow, and so I like to have it in a palette. But yeah, strictly if you want a cool yellow to mix with, excuse me, you'd be better going with something like a Hansa Yellow Light. Here's New Gamboge, brilliant kind of sunshine, buttercup, sunflower yellow. Real, again, brilliant mixing colour. Then we get our Quin Gold Deep, which is sort of, it has things in common with the Burnt Sienna Light, but as you can see, it's got a much yellower tinge to it. The Burnt Sienna Light is really an autumn leaf brown orange, and this is a warm burnished orange, and I love it. And we're into Pyrrol Red, which is a fairly sort of mid-red, I would say. Warmish, not massively warm, but I'm not a fan of a massively warm red. And if I give it a hit of Burnt Sienna Light or I give it a hit of Quin Gold Deep, it will give me something. And here's our Quin Rose, nicely sitting up. And this is a full-on pink. You might be quite surprised to see this here, but again, in terms of a mixing colour, that's really useful for getting purples and lilacs, as well as fading to a really quite delicate rosy pink. So that's the mixing palette, and it's looking pretty good to me. I think there's a lot of mileage in that. So let's just see what happens if we put down something onto our sketch pad, because that's really what we're here for. Those are those colours. As I say, in the long run, I'll transfer some onto this little palette so that I can keep it with me in case I want reminding what I've got. So this now can go onto here. I really like that this is removable, because it means if you've got more space, you can put this somewhere else, change your positioning if you're working at a cafe table or something and you wanted to have the paints out here, then you've got that flexibility. But when you're using them in the pad, this panel slid through here is going to hold them nice and firm. That's a plant delivery. Give me a second. Not the expected plant delivery, but a friend coming to pick something up. So it's a busy day here. Plants are still due, so that might be another interruption, I'm afraid, but needs must. So let's have a look at this. Let's maybe start with putting some paint across the middle here. Just loose application. Let it do some mixing by itself. And then maybe we can get some of this cerulean blue up into the sky. So the other thing I'm going to almost certainly want with me when I'm out plein air painting, plein air in French, open air painting, is maybe a water bottle spritzing. Maybe that's the way to get water, is to carry a spritzing water bottle. I'll also need paper towel. So I'm just wondering, actually that might be a good place, just thinking about setting up a working setup when I'm out and about. So if I'm holding this in my hand, then what one can also do, so there's a strap here. Oops, I don't want to move that sky too much. Yes, look. So under this strap here, I can tuck some kitchen roll, and then I've got that ready to clean the brush on in between colours. That's good. Let's maybe get something sunshiny down into these fields. I'm going to let some ultramarine blue into this mix here. Oh, that was Prussian. So this is why it's a good idea to have my reminder palette with me. Going to keep that nice and soft up there. Just let that travel. Come down into the foreground. Maybe we should have some serpentine green in here. Just let that move around, and a little bit of buff titanium might be fun. Just letting that mix in, and I'm just going to create some little, you can see that green where I've let those two mix is making its way up into being trees, which is letting the watercolors do the painting for you. So I'm just going to add in some little thoughts of trees into there. Maybe just a little bit of, maybe we want, I need to explore with my mixing palette. So this ceramic palette here, you can see the paint moves so beautifully on it. I'm just thinking of mixing up something a bit turquoisey to get myself a lake. Oh, look at that. That's a lovely rich green with those. I thought these were going to mix up some nice colours. But I want to go bluer than that. So here, let's see, maybe that with a little bit of the cerulean blue gives me something, yeah, a little bit lakey down here. Just an idea of water in the landscape. I might drop in a little bit of yellow texture. Maybe there are some flowers. Maybe there's some queen gold in there as well. Just letting that move on here. But this is a beautiful mixing palette. Look at that paint move, and that clear bright white just gives you perfect visual on what color you're getting. that grey mixed into there makes me deeply happy. It's really interesting how much I'm obsessed by grey. So I think I need to let that dry a little bit before I put in more detailing. But that's really nice paper to work on as well. It's bowing a little bit, but I'd expect that with the amount of water I've just put on there. I'm wondering whether I can sort of introduce some little grassy textures down here in the foreground, keeping it nice and soft and loose. So I put some paint in, and then I'm just flicking with the very tip of this. Create that in the foreground. Maybe around the lake. And then maybe what we want on this shore of the lake is some grey titanium, just to... I think that'll do as a sort of initial watercolour sketch. So I hope you've enjoyed seeing me struggle to work out how this little watercolour kit works, but I really think that this is a neat little setup to take away with me. I haven't tucked that in properly, but I can get a whole piece of paper towel into there. If you work with a rag, then a rag. And if that's slid under there, that'll make a lovely place to just continue cleaning. And the whole thing holds in one's hand beautifully. So I can well imagine being up on the top of the hill opposite and being able to, yeah, hold this in one hand, paint, looking, and start maybe a new plein air habit. Thanks so much for your company as always. Don't forget the discount code, which is active from the 20th today until the 25th of May. If you fancy joining me on this plein air journey, putting together your own mixing palette of colours to make sure that you can go out and about on the road and be able to, yeah, paint whatever takes your fancy. Very much enjoying that ceramic palette, very much enjoying this smart green leather wallet. And yes, very grateful, thank you to LIghtwish for giving me the chance to take a look at your watercolor travel set with ceramic palette. 18 lovely spots. It gives you so much choice with your paint for what you can put in. I'm going to have great fun exploring with this. Thanks so much for your company. If you've enjoyed this, do give me a thumbs up. If you're not already subscribed, I would love to have your company on the journey. So much going on here, both watercolours, mixed media, textures, lots of delicious stuff. So comments, questions, of course, always welcome down below, and I'll leave details of this product and the discount code in the description beneath the video. Thanks so much for your watching, and happy crafting all.